Let's do it.
Okay, awesome. So thanks for tuning in to our webinar, our video recording. We're going to talk to you today about DTracks, which is a program that is about design thinking and really about how international students specifically that are in STEM can really look to kind of enhance their career, enhance their job prospects using design thinking. And we'll get more into what design thinking is and kind of how we think we can infuse this into the job search and the job process by not only thinking about how companies are using design thinking and how you might in your career use design thinking, but also thinking about how you can use design thinking to kind of go through the job search process and really kind of understand yourself and your value proposition as a candidate. So you see the tagline, it's Kickstart Your Career. And my name is Carly Jacobson, and I'm on here with Justin, my colleague.
Hello.
Do you want to say hi, Justin?
Hi, everyone.
Yep. And yeah, so we're going to kind of jump into it, and I'll let Justin kind of do the first couple of slides and talk about a little bit about, what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, I think what we're doing here today, Carly and I are from a company called Business Models Inc. And what we do is we design strategies and innovative business models and value propositions for companies all over the world. And we're doing this in partnership with Wang and through Seed, as well as OPTnation. And really what we want to do here is try to offer new opportunities and new pathways to opportunities. And just like Carly said, through design thinking. The idea there being that what we see every single day in our work is that big companies all over the world, and definitely here in the US, are moving towards methodologies. You can call it design thinking, you can call it lean, you can call it agile, you can call it anything you really want. The methodologies are very likely the same. They're moving towards these because this is where innovation is going. This is where they're designing and building new businesses, often on top of old businesses, or they're perhaps building new startups as well. So what we're doing in this overview is this webinar, and what we're recording right now is really just an overview of what is design thinking and what would we cover as part of DTracks. And what we intend to do with DTracks is give you a glimpse of how to use design thinking, and also something called design doing. So actually how to start doing this, using the right nomenclature, being able to talk about it, being able to actually do things and have a bit of experience there, and doing that through some online courses, but also some real-time courses with Carly and I, where we will shepherd you along, we'll answer questions, we'll present lots of really, really interesting, cool case studies from big companies, perhaps some of the ones that you're interested in applying to or working for, and maybe you've even worked for them before. So we will use online as a medium to present what we're going to do and present you with really interesting topics and case studies to help you along your way. And really the idea there is to help you get a really great job right out of school. So this course includes lots of different things. So it's guidance in your career path. So it isn't just design thinking and designing, because you think it's a good buzzword, or lean is a good buzzword to go use, but we want to actually help you design your career and a career path to go along with that. It is also lots of, like, as I said, lots of different case studies. And so Google and Autodesk and Cisco and others will be using online as a medium, but also understanding how to use that to prototype and build new things. Then to design strategy. So this isn't just because designing is cool or a neat word, but it's actually about how can we use design to design strategy, not only for your own life, based on your own skills or skills you want to get, but also for companies that you may want to work for. This is going to give you hands-on experience with customer research as part of design. And of course, I think the big one at the end of this is all about a certificate. So we want to be able to leave you not only having learned a bunch of things about design thinking, but also provide you with a certificate at the end that says, hey, you've completed this course, you've completed what you wanted to complete, and now you're on your way to something bigger and even better. So a little about us, and I think I'll start with me since I'm talking. So that's clearly a picture of me. It's a bigger beard perhaps now. My name is Justin Lokitz, and I'm the managing director in San Francisco. So I live and work in San Francisco. When I'm not inside like this doing a webinar or working with clients or students, you'll often find me outside swimming in the bay or running or doing whatever other things I can do outside. I started my career, and certainly before Oracle, but the career that I'm doing now, I started really at Oracle in the late 90s, early 2000s, where I did everything from software engineering to sales consulting to product strategy, and also some actual consulting strategy. So I did a lot of work at Oracle, and eventually I left Oracle and I went to some startups where I gained a ton of experience in startup life and what is it like to be in Silicon Valley, hustling and doing every job you can at the same time. Again, all the same jobs I did at Oracle, but now all at the same exact time. Where at the startup I worked for, we were eaten or acquired by another startup, which was acquired by another company, which was eventually acquired by a giant Swedish holding company called Hexagon. I left that world in 2000, and actually that was Hexagon. So left that world in 2007 to go to Autodesk, where I worked at Autodesk, actually 2008, I guess, for about 7 years. And really all that time spent there was as a product manager, senior product manager, product strategist. And really what that was all about was using different techniques and tools and data and empathy for my customers to help build better products and build and launch products into a big market, which is engineering construction markets. So that's me, and I'll pass it over to Carly.
Yeah, so I'm Carly Jacobson, and I'm also a strategy designer at Business Models Inc. But I actually got my career start at a small website called Instructables.com. If you aren't familiar with Instructables, it's the largest DIY project sharing website. So there's about probably now a couple 100,000 all user created content on anything you can think of, DIY projects. And over the time that I was there, did lots of different things from content creation to business development, partnerships, new program development, created 115 tutorials, DIY tutorials, almost at 14 million page views now. Some of the stuff that I like to make and build, definitely a craftsy kind of get things done, home hack type person. So I got this pipe bookshelf shoe rack in my bedroom, created this suitcase picnic table. So that's just kind of my background, is definitely in design, definitely in creating and making, and all of this stuff starts with prototyping. Interestingly enough, my job also brought me to Autodesk. We got acquired in 2011, so a year into me working there, onto their consumer products team. So we've talked a little bit about business models, and of course Justin and I are from Business Models Inc. It's kind of interesting. Autodesk business model on their consumer team was, Autodesk's known for making 3D software. That's they're going after their customers, super highly trained engineers and architects, and they're paying lots of money for Autodesk and AutoCAD and Maya software. And on their consumer products team, which is where I was at, it was actually their flipped business model, where they're going after more kind of hobbyists, more everyday people. How can we get them to start using 3D software? How can we maybe grow them into larger customers? So we were doing, free download software and $1, $2, $3 downloads with a lot bigger customer base, helping them build community around these large new audiences of consumers. And of course now Justin and I are both at Business Models Inc. So Business Models Inc., we redesign businesses. So of course we keep talking about this word design, and hopefully as we get to the end of this presentation, you'll have a deeper appreciation for the word design. But it's not just about kind of concepting and implementing businesses. It's really about thoughtful design, and really design that puts customers at the center of business decisions. And of course, as a business first company, we're all about direct results on the bottom line. And really one of the biggest things is creating results with teams. So we really think that the more diverse perspectives and those kind of out of the box thinkers and getting people from maybe different backgrounds, different teams together. We really like building with groups, and that's really what the design process is all grounded in, is how are we building with different teams. And I think especially for the course and why Business Models Inc. and Justin and I are really positioned well to teach a course on the design thinking. As whether you're an engineer or whether you're trying to go into product or you're trying to go into anything where it's around building products, you're going to have to build with teams. So really being able to translate different problems and concepts between product people and coders and maybe user researchers and designers and everybody, the more you're able to have these conversations, the better you're positioned, as a job candidate, and as someone that's going to be able to move up. Justin will talk about this more, but he definitely had this kind of role at Autodesk where he was in product, and he'll tell you that anybody on his team that had these kind of skills where they're able to translate across these different roles is really important. So yeah, we as Business Models Inc., we work for a lot of companies, a lot of large enterprises, especially technology, whether it's software, hardware, or consumer products. So you can see we've got Microsoft on here, we've got Philips, 3M, we've got Mozilla. So you can read the rest, Intel. But yes, these are some of the organizations that we've worked with. You may have seen this book. This is our, I like to think of it as our founding story in a way, because Business Model Generation outlines a tool called the Business Model Canvas, which we'll definitely jump into in the course. And Business Model Generation is all about how are we thinking about, the different building blocks of what comprises a business model. And our team is international, so it's something, again, like we definitely work with lots of international companies with different diversity and cross-disciplinary teams in different regions. So we have a team, we're headquartered in the Netherlands, team in Taipei, and they do lots of work in China and Asia and Singapore, team in Australia, and then 2 teams in the United States. We have one in San Francisco and New York City. And so this is our most recent book, Design a Better Business. We will be providing copies of this book to people that are attending the workshop. And this is really kind of the blueprint, and we'll go through this graphic on the front. It's this double loop. We'll go through that deeper, but this is really the blueprint of how companies can use design thinking for strategy and innovation. You see at the top, new tools, skills, and mindsets for strategy and innovation. So what is design thinking? So either you came into this webinar and you're like, okay, I have a little understanding, or I've never heard of that before. So what is design thinking? I love this definition because it's kind of really quick and really easy to understand. Design thinking is a process for creative problem solving. So it's really about how are we solving problems creatively. It definitely follows a process, so it's not just kind of a free-for-all. We'll walk through. I mean, the workshop that we'll be doing, the 4-week workshop, is going to be about this process for creative problem solving, and how are we really putting users at the front of this, making sure we're making products and solving problems that are benefiting people that will be using the solutions that we come up with. This is a really great framework, actually really famous framework around design thinking. It's called What Is, What If, What Wows, and What Works. So as you're so we think about this creative process for problem solving. It follows these 4 kind of chunks, or these 4 phases. What is, so the first phase of design thinking is about exploring the world. It's really about observing, interviewing, analyzing what is going on in the world, whether you have a specific problem, whether you're trying to understand your company, you're trying to understand a certain community or market or problem, what is right now. And then what if, so once you have a good sense of what's going on and you kind of understand what is, well then this is when you kind of start brainstorming, and you see that loop goes up, because this is where you want to really blow out with the creative brainstorming and creating and exploring. Okay, so well, if we know this is what exists now, what can we make to kind of address what's in the world? So this is going really into outer space. Of all those what if, and again, I say outer space because in the what if phase, you don't want to block yourself too much. So it's going something, you're not being too analytical on yourself. But with the what wows, it's okay, how can we refine and evaluate and build to make sure that all the what ifs are actually things that people are wowed by and impressed by. And so this is where we start prototyping. This is where we start bringing in customers. And then the what works. This is this kind of couple different sides to the what works. It's experimenting and it's testing. It's a what works as far as, are we solving the right problem? Is it actually possible? Are we also finding, does it work as far as, business decision? Does it work to make us money? Does it work to, actually provide a product or a solution that people want? So this framework, if you kind of can understand this framework, when you see any, different companies and different places have their own design thinking frameworks, you'll kind of see their frameworks broken down in a similar way to these 4 phases. So top companies employing design thinking. These are just some of the top companies. I think at this point, almost every large enterprise, Fortune 500, 1000, is using design thinking in some capacity. So we'll walk through some examples. We have an example for Autodesk and Google and IBM. They're all using design thinking very prominently in their work. But we either know people at each one of these companies that are doing design thinking, or have been very up to date on reading their case studies and the stuff coming out of these companies. And we've even worked in design thinking at some of these companies. And then top universities. So these are, again, some examples of universities. I think design thinking is really, it's of course being infused at the graduate level, but even at the undergraduate level, it's, a very, very big part of problem solving. And now even, middle schools and high schools and younger, as young as like young children are learning design thinking. And it's about, if I can apply this methodology of search and understanding and looking for problems and solutions, then I can kind of solve most any problem. So as far as like an academic and educational case for design thinking, I think everybody is kind of on board with it at this point. So IBM product development. So I'm going to walk through, they have a really great video that it's about their enterprise design thinking. So accelerate and scale thinking across your organizations. So let me see if I can pull that up really quick. If I go to, I don't know why. I'll just try. That's Justin. Do you know how I could?
You're full screen, that's why. So you need to.
Oh, it still didn't escape?
No, it's escape, but you went to PowerPoint full screen. So you need to go up there, go up to the very top. Keep going, keep going. Keep going.
Up here? Okay.
No.
There we go. Perfect. Okay. Not missing a beat. Okay, so I'll just kind of pull this a little larger, and I'll just play this video. It's pretty quick, and then we'll kind of walk through a little bit what you see in the video.
And obviously we don't hear sound on the other side.
Oh, okay. Well then I'll just skip that because I'll send it as a link to everybody. It's, we don't want to waste too much time. But what you see in the video and kind of what you can pull out from what you get out of design thinking is it's about putting the user first. I've mentioned this a few times. It's really about putting the user first in your problem solving and making sure you're making something desirable. Thinking like a designer. So this is all about thinking in options and and being iterative in your work, not just going for the single right solution, but really thinking about options as you're building solutions. Experimenting like a scientist. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this, but let's try this over here. What's this kind of low barrier? We call them prototypes, low barrier experiments that we can work on, and just be curious and just being incredibly curious. And then of course, rapid prototyping like a maker. How are we doing these, low fidelity, quick, easy, bite size prototyping, whether it's physical prototype, whether it's a digital prototype, how can we really do this quick and lean? Empathizing like an anthropologist, I think it's, you know, anybody leaving a design thinking course, really, you feel like you're an anthropologist. It's about observing, viewing, and understanding customers. So how are we really trying to get in their heads and really kind of feel and understand with them? So one of the first case studies or, you know, kind of examples I want to show is Google's design sprint. This is, you know, Google's very well known for this design sprint methodology. So this is their book, Sprint. It's solve big problems, how to solve big problems and test new ideas in just 5 days. So you saw the what is, what wows, that framework. They kind of, how can we do that whole cycle of testing in just 5 days to go from taking a big hairy problem and then by the end of the 5 days saying, okay, we feel like we could either give a check or an X, you know, a thumbs up or thumbs down on if we've been able to, you know, prove that we've you know, solved the problem. So this is the, you know, 5-day test. So you can kind of see, again, it follows along, and I'll actually walk through an example of how they did this, but you can check this out. Really at the heart of the Google Design Sprint and a lot of what we do is, so if you look at the outer circle, 1, 2, 3, 4, it starts with idea and then it goes to build. So you have an idea, you build the idea, you launch the idea, and then you learn. The problem with that is you have to wait all the way till you get to 4 till you learn anything. So you're building, you're launching, then you learn. You spend all that time building and launching. The goal with this is to go from directly to idea to learn as fast as possible. I mean, they're doing the sprint in 5 days, but even if you have more or less than 5 days, if you're a startup or if you're an enterprise company, if you're hungry and trying to move fast and not get disrupted, you want to learn as quick as possible. You can break out of the smaller teal blue loop into build and you know, and launch but in smaller bite-sized cycles. But the goal is really how can we get to learn as fast as possible with smaller prototypes, with not a whole, you know, giant build. So these are some of the companies that Google has run these sprints with. Actually, the sprint was designed in Google Ventures, by the first 3 partners that started there. I was actually lucky enough in my grad school, Braden, he was one of the authors on the book. He was one of my professors for my business models class, so he was kind of testing the sprint on our class, which was really neat to be there before the book was published, get the kind of a case study for that. So we're going to walk through an example of Blue Bottle. So if you're not familiar, Blue Bottle is a huge growing coffee company in the United States. I don't know, they might be international. I'm not
Yeah, it's international.
Yeah, they're international. Okay, so yeah, they're international. They're growing really fast, and they're kind of at that heart of the like artisanal coffee, you know, almost the anti-Starbucks. So what Google Ventures did with Blue Bottle in those 5 days was translate the hospitality and quality of Blue Bottle to the web. So really what, you know, what they're trying to do is Blue Bottle, their whole thing was about in-store experience, and they're translating it to the web. So you can imagine if you're an engineer or your software team and you're kind of helping with that problem, it's not just a one-for-one. You can't just throw pictures of coffee on a website and say, buy our coffee. You have to really try to recreate that experience. And that's, you know, as Blue Bottle as a customer of, you know, a company that would be, you know, building, or if you're working for Blue Bottle and their team, they're like, you know, okay, how are we going to translate this to a digital experience? So day 0, which is kind of prepping for the 5 days, is going out and interviewing coffee drinkers and really trying to understand, like, you know, who's at Blue Bottle normally, and, you know, what do they want? What are they doing at the cafe? And kind of really looking at them as they're there. And then day 1 is all about understand the online coffee shopper. So, you know, it's the online coffee shopper might be different from the in-store coffee shopper. So you can see these different verticals that they have around hospitality, tone, friendly, cafe-centric. The online coffee shopper might be similar to the in-store coffee shopper, probably is a very big overlap. So really trying to understand, you know, what is the online coffee shopper looking for? That this is the what is, the, you know, the first bubble in that framework we saw. Day 2 is sketch possible solutions. So we understanding what is. Now we're saying, you know, what if. So we're kind of going big and looking at, what are some possible solutions that we could come up with. And day 3 is we're going to now decide which we want to prototype. This is prepping for the what wows, or, are we actually solving this problem? So they're building super lo-fi, low fidelity, kind of basic, simple storyboards and outlining for how this interaction would work. Day 4 is prototyping. This is, they probably use some really basic templates, some basic photography that Blue Bubble already had to build a really basic website, but they're really prototyping a couple different key things of whatever hypothesis they had about customer centricity and coffee experience and online culture. They probably had a few different things that they're using the website to test with, so they start prototyping that. And then the day 5 is actually testing. So this is, I mentioned that Google's done this. We had those 4, Savvy Oak and a few other Medium, a few other big companies that they've been doing this with. And this is how they really, in 1 week, go through a huge sprint cycle that for, most other companies are taking weeks, months, potentially, if hopefully not years. So I'll have Justin go through the Autodesk example,
Sure.
mostly because he lived it. So
Yep.
Justin, if you want to talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, sure. So at Autodesk, where I work, so it's a big design software company, but both Carly and I work there. They had this challenge, and this is when we worked there, and I was in the heart of this challenge as a product strategist, which was how do we better serve our customers, and specifically think about our customers when we think about new business models and cloud technologies. I'll give you a little background. Autodesk, as a software company, grew up selling boxes of software to architects, engineers, and other kinds of people. And they were boxes of software that you had to install from DVDs, and before that, floppy disks and things like that. But as they moved to the cloud and moved to full cloud software and cloud-enabled software, they had to start rethinking the strategy of that and the business models of that, but also how it would affect people, the customers. So in that, they brought on another firm that I worked closely with called Luma Institute, and just like Sprint and just like the IBM stuff that Carly went through a moment ago, this is another company that has an interesting flavor, and they think of it as, it's called human-centered design. But what does it look like to take design processes and scale them inside of a big company, 8,000 people at Autodesk? Certainly not as big as Google or IBM for sure, but it's still 8,000 people in a $2.5 billion company. What does it look like to scale design throughout and create a culture of innovation? So they brought on Luma Institute to do that. And in that, they really began to transform through the things that Carly and I are talking about, through design-led methods and getting everyone throughout the entire company, everyone from the CEO to the receptionist, to the product support people, to the product engineers. I'm talking about everyone at the entire company. They were able to and continued to be able to transform how everyone thinks about not just the products, but the culture, as well as the customers and the customer relationships. And everyone lives and breathes this idea of design there now. I think what's critical in doing that, and this is no different than the other companies that we've shown you, is that in doing this, the biggest wins are that they've created this culture for change and enabled everyone to help the company transition into different kinds of cloud-based computing and new software products delivered over the cloud, and also, of course, have created this strong, more loyal customer relationship throughout. So these things that we've just talked about are really, really important to these big companies. And what's more important is that they get people from schools, from universities into the companies that also believe these same things. In fact, I can tell you from doing lots of hiring at Autodesk as well, and of course hiring now, that when I hear people talking about design, when I hear people coming out of school and talking about design and really having some experience trying this stuff out, it makes a big difference, because it's one thing to perhaps listen to what Carly and I are saying here. It's definitely a different thing to try to practice it in the course and the workshops that Carly and I are talking about. And so these companies are ones that really hire people that value thinking about design and actually have some experience and at least practice doing it.
Yeah.
So why don't we talk a little bit about the program that we want to do. So everything from all these companies and everything we've gathered over the last 10 years boils down to something that we call the double loop. So there's all these design processes, and Carly talked you through the what is, what if, what wows, what works, and of course there's Google Sprint, and IBM has their own, and Autodesk hired Luma. For us, they all boil down to a few things, which is at the heart of everything is a concept that is your point of view. And your point of view guides who you are, and of course guides, perhaps what you know and what you might do next. But using that point of view, you can go out and understand the world, and that's the, what is. And if you can understand the world, you can do some what ifs. You can create some new ideas with you, your friends, your colleagues, and others. And that further informs your point of view that's at the center of this little double loop diagram. And of course, if you can do that, you could figure out what wows and what works through prototyping and validation. So our course is centered around this idea of design and design thinking, lean methodologies, agile. I just keep mentioning all these words because they're all the same. They're all about taking this world that we know and understanding that everything is uncertain, but how do we use that uncertainty to our advantage and our point of view to our advantage to go out there and be empathetic and test, create new ideas and test those ideas with customers in really, really quick fashion. And how can we do that? Talking through it, practicing it, so that when we go to get jobs, we also have a little bit of experience under our belts and we know what we're talking about. So we'll use the double loop as part of our practice. This double loop is all about new tools, new skills, and new mindset. That's what it takes to be a design strategist. It's also what it takes to go get a job at Google or Autodesk or IBM or Microsoft or any of these big companies today. They're looking for people with new tools and skills and mindsets that embody this idea of design. And what's more is, these tools that we're talking about aren't just the IT or the sort of software tools you might think of, or the apps on your phone or wherever they may be. In fact, there are other really useful tools for figuring out how to design strategies and figuring out how to look at customers and understand what they feel and so forth. So in the course of this course, we'll walk you through and basically tell you a lot about and give you practice in lots and lots of different tools. And so here's some of them, and we won't go through all of them now. In doing that, of course, there's the skills part and the mindset, which is this idea of how do we embody empathy and co-creation, coming together with different kinds of people to come up with new ideas and co-create those things together. And then, of course, experimenting together and figuring out which things might work, which things might not, and and moving forward. And finally, I think this wouldn't be complete if we didn't also talk not just about design and design for big companies and how to talk about it, but also something we'll cover in this. We have a hand in participating in the creation of this book too, is something called Business Model U. Is how do we use some of these same tools, some of these same design methods to help you design help you design your career path, who you are, what you value, so that you can get and do what you want to do out of school. And so a big part of what we'll do is not just the methodologies and the tools and all of the naming conventions and those kinds of things around design and giving you some practice in that, but also giving you some real world practice in helping you to design who you are and design your career around who you are and what you want. And this is a little bit of that. This is a specific tool called the Personal Business Model Canvas. And of course, this is, we'll use this as part of the course as well. So at the very end of this, we mentioned this at the very beginning. What we hope to do is, get you going, understanding this stuff and practicing this stuff in a real way and having some real-time interaction with you over the course of a few weeks. But also at the very end, giving you a certificate, and the certificate being, hey, I went through this course and I've done something really, really great, and I, not only know how to speak this but I know how to do this stuff. And if we see you in this course really working hard, then we'd like to be able to provide you with a certificate to say that you actually are you're a designer, and you'll be on your way. So with that, we're going to leave you with some questions, and what I'd say is, after we're done here, we'll try to publish this, and put it up somewhere where everyone can see it. And Carly and I will also follow up with a survey, knowing that really I don't think there was anyone here because the webinar didn't work, but we will make sure that you get a chance to see this. We hope you do. We hope you like it, and of course, at the very end, we will also feedback a survey so we can better understand where you're coming from, what you want to learn, and of course where you're coming from at school, and so forth. So with that, why don't we close it out, Carly?